Okay. Let's get to some of these news stories here. We have a couple of news stories that we want to go over that we've had happen over the last week. And one of these, well, this first one I would say is very cool. We have a legendary driver returning to NASCAR, and that is Dario Franchitti. Dario Franchitti is coming back to NASCAR to race in the Craftsman Truck Series at St. Petersburg, a track that he actually has some experience at. Some of you may know the story of Dario Franchitti, raced over here in the Cup Series for a couple years, attempted with Chip Ganassi Racing. Honestly, just didn't really find the success that I think he was expecting and hoping for. And we saw a couple of drivers from the open wheel scene come over and within a couple years span. Of course, you had Robbie Gordon, you had Tony Stewart, who anything he gets into, he seems to be the very best at. If you're watching NHRA, he's just Tony fucking Stewart. And then you saw, of course, like I said, Dario Franchitti. You saw Christian Fittipaldi. You saw Juan Pablo Montoya. I think Montoya had a good amount of success. I kind of wish he stayed in NASCAR because I think he finally got his feet under him once he ended up leaving. But Dario Franchitti just couldn't figure it out. I feel like Franchitti just couldn't quite figure out the Cup cars. Had a lot of success in IndyCar, won an IndyCar Series championship, went back to IndyCar, ended up winning an Indianapolis 500. Had a lot more success. Probably one of the if I had to really think about it and make a list, I'd probably put him in the top 15, maybe even the top 10 greatest IndyCar drivers of all time. Ended up retiring early, and it seemed like a career ending injury in 2013, wrecking in the Grand Prix of Houston. Had two spinal fractures plus a concussion. It seemed like his career was done. Over the last couple of years, he's been doing some amateur races, and a couple of weeks ago, actually raced in the Dubai 24 Hours in the 20 in a GT3 car. So he's beginning to make a comeback. So this truck race will actually be his second professional race over the last 13 years. So that's very cool to have a legend back in the sport, racing for Tricon Garage in the number one. I honestly don't know how well he's going to do. I don't know how good he's going to do. He honestly could be complete ass, but he also could be very competitive. We'll have to see what happens with that. But I'll send it to Cory here first. How do you feel about a legendary driver of Franchitti's status coming back to just a one-off in trucks? Maybe it's more races, but right now it just seems like a one-off at St. Pete.
It's a good story, man. I think it's awesome. I honestly, my big thing is I really hope he does well, like
Same.
just for the story and for himself. That's what I want to see. But yeah, no, it's a good story. I can't wait to see him on the track.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool to see Franchitti out there. It's going to be very cool. And I think Jenson Button's even rumored to potentially be in that St. Pete race as well. So that St. Pete race for the Truck Series could potentially be stacked. And now I kind of understand why that, because I thought that was the most dumbest thing I've ever seen on a NASCAR schedule. Why the hell is the Truck Series randomly going to St. Petersburg instead of Las Vegas? Like, why? I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it at all, but it's beginning to make a little bit more sense to me that they're trying to attract maybe some international drivers to come race at St. Pete, because none of the drivers in NASCAR have any experience at St. Pete. So this could be a really good opportunity for some of these international drivers to potentially put their name into a hat for NASCAR owners. But Tyler, how do you feel about Dario Franchitti being back in NASCAR?
It's always cool to see a legend like that cross into our sport, but my biggest thing is he's probably not going to do well.
No,
So like
I don't think so.
yes, you have somebody come in and they bring in their fan base and their fan base watches the race and yeah, you have all those pluses, right? But there could be a kid, I don't know, time, anybody, I don't care, put him in that car. Like anybody else. There's how many drivers that don't have a ride right now that could use some seat time? I don't know. It's just weird for me. I'm double edged with it because you could always use the fans coming in, but at the same time, that's a seat that an up and coming driver can be in and get an experience in.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. It's a quality ride, and from what we know, Heim Time doesn't have any full-time ride this year. I assume he'll probably get a couple of starts with Tricon. It sounds like he's going to race a good amount of races for 2311 Racing in the Cup Series. And I think there is a lot of drivers that could that would have more success than Dario Franchitti in that number one. But like you said, at the same time, I'm perfectly fine with it because it does bring in new fans, and then also it could potentially create some chatter amongst some of these international drivers. Like, what if Franchitti comes in here and has like a top 15 or even like a top 20, and Jenson Button comes in, has a top 15, top 20? They're going to go talk to their international driver friends, and maybe we have Daniel Ricciardo racing in a race. That's my dream. I would love to see Danny Rick race in a cup race, but we can maybe see some more international drivers join in if some of these guys have success. And it's kind of been a mixed bag. Obviously, you had Shane Van Gisbergen come in here and win his first race, but then you've had some drivers have a whole bunch of struggles, and then you have some drivers that just get wrecked by Ricky Stenhouse throughout the whole entire race. So the international drivers have just had definitely some issues. Some of you that watched the Indy Road Course knew what I was talking about there. But some of these international drivers I feel like are either scared or don't want to come over. Like, it's the same deal with like Larson, for example. Like, Kyle Larson's a hell of a race car driver, but after his failure in the last Indianapolis 500, I think he's someone that would not want to go race in another series, at least for a while. And I think a lot of these international drivers don't want to go race in a different series because they know what they know, and they don't want to feel uncomfortable, I guess, or look weak, I guess you could say. It's something that is a big part of the motorsports community. So I'm happy to see Franchitti get this opportunity, and we'll have to see how he does. Maybe Jenson Button's also going to be in the St. Pete race amongst maybe some other international drivers. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Dario Franchitti racing for Tricon Garage in the number one at St. Pete in the Truck Series? Later this month, actually. I think that race is later this month.